Hello, this is Carson Winter, and this will be the 2023 State Calculator Applications Test. It's a test that always likes to try and trick you up, but if you look past the tricks, it is actually not too bad of a test. Let's go. Number 6, what is the result from squaring the sum of these two values? Well, sum them up, square them, and you get your answer right here. 7. What is the product of the square of this value and the positive square root of this value? This first value squared times square root of this second value. What is y if y plus 5 over y is 4.85? Well, go ahead and do EQ solver for this. Make sure your guess is positive. If you get an error, you probably put a negative guess. And if you do that, you'll get y is equal to 1.30. Square, the area is 165. The area of a square is side squared. So take the square root of 165 to get one side. 10, the whole perimeter is this much. So to get this side, this 0.0629 appears twice. So you have to subtract that twice from the total perimeter. And since this side also appears twice, you have to divide the remaining part by 2. If you do that, you get a side length of 4.41 times 10 powered to negative 2. How long does it take random dude to drive 155 miles at 65 miles per hour? Well, time is equivalent to distance over speed. So 155 miles over 65 miles per hour gets you 2.38 hours. Is 33.7 miles from here to there? How many inches is that? Well, you got to convert 33.7 into inches. So take the number in miles, then multiply it into feet, multiply it by the number of feet in a mile, and multiply by the number of inches in a foot. And if you do that, you will get a total of 2.14 times 10 power to 6 inches. 18 was the diameter of a 55-gallon drum if the height is that tall. Well, a drum is a cylinder, so the area of the volume of a cylinder is radius, or in this case, the diameter over 2, squared times pi times your height. And that value is equal to this many cubic inches. To convert gallons to cubic inches, you multiply by 231. If you don't know that, you could go to Side Tools. You go to Apps, scroll up till you find Side Tools, and figure out this value through that matter. And if you do that, you will get a diameter of 21.6 inches. 19, right triangle. Triangle is length times height. 629 times 401 over 2 gets you an area of 1.26 times 10 power to 5. Right triangle. Okay, we're going to solve for this x side first. You're given that the area is 10.1. Well, the area of a triangle is length times width over 2. And so 7.14 times this unknown x over 2 is 10.1. And once you find that x, you can use Pythagorean theorem to figure out this side over here. Square root of x squared plus 7.14 squared will get you 7.68. 26. The racetrack is this long. The single lap rapper took this amount of time. What's his speed? Well, speed is distance over time. So they want distance in miles and speed in hours, or in time in hours. So 2.3 miles over this time in hours. So 1 minute converted to hours and 36.169 seconds converted to hours. And if you do that, you will get 86.10 miles per hour. There are 4 SDs because everything's being multiplied together or really divided together. The fact that these conversions are happening doesn't matter. So there are 4 significant digits, meaning you keep, and 5 or 6 here. So you keep the lowest amount and have 4 significant digits in your answer. 27. A 1,000 piece jigsaw puzzle was rectangular when completed, measuring 38 by 27 pieces. What is the percent error in calling it 1,000 pieces? Well, percent error is estimate minus actual over actual. So in this case, your estimate is 1,000 pieces, and your actual is the 38 times 27 pieces squared. And then you divide it by that actual value, multiply by 100 to turn it into a percent, and get negative 2.53%. 28. The Cadillac Ranch is 10 half-buried like cars, an art project, yada yada yada. If Cadillac cost $35,000 in 2023, how much did it cost in 1974? And an annual inflation rate of 2.6%. So that adds up to a number you're going to be powering. Your base for the power is going to be 1.026. Every year it multiplies by that value. So what you do is you do the new year you're looking for minus your original year. In this case, it's going to be negative, which means that our value is going to be smaller than the original 35,000, which is what we want because it got more expensive due to inflation. So if you do that, that means that basically, in a way, negative 49 years passed, and you multiply it by the original value, and then you multiply it by 10 because there are 10 cars in the lot. And if you do that and write your answer your 7-digit answer correctly, then you will get this value right here. 29, total surface area of a cylinder. Okay, well, the surface area cylinder has 2 parts, the 2 circles on the top and bottom, and the lateral surface area here. So the area of these 2 circles, radius squared times pi, and there's 2 of them. Okay, 0.5, and then you have your lateral surface area, which is the circumference. So 0.526 pi times the height of 3.31. If you do that, you'll get a surface area of 5.9. Okay, hemisphere, you're looking for the radius when you're given the surface area. Okay, then you will do, then your equate, or basically how it's going to work out. We can start with, let's start with the latter, or this spherical surface area, looking surface area right here. So the surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared, but this is half a sphere, so you only multiply by 2. So 2 pi r squared. And then you also have this circle down here that contributes to the surface area, so r squared times pi. And if you add those together, they have to be 71.8. Put that in EQ solver, and you will get a 3.12. Okay, 36, stick in the ground that tall, cast a shadow that long. How tall is a building casting a shadow that long? Well, you got the height of the building and the length of the shadow form a triangle, so they both increase proportionally. So which means you can do a proportion of the new height or the new shadow length over the original shadow length, and then you can multiply that by the original height, as shown here, to get the total height of the building. All these inches are converted to feet, as seen, and they're all in this overall is the proportion you are multiplying the original height by. If you do that, you get 112. There are 3 significant digits because this 1 foot, 3.4 inches, everything's being multiplied and divided together, as you can ignore the conversions from feet to inches to feet. Those aren't relevant. So yeah, you use the number with the lowest significant digits, so 1 and 3.4 are 3. So that results in 3 significant digits. A person inhales a single virus cell. The virus triples in numbers every 4 hours. If it takes 300,000 virus cells to cause symptoms, what is the virus incubation period? Well, you got to figure out how long it takes for a single virus that's continually tripling to reach 300,000 viruses. So that is log base 3, definition of log, essentially. Log base 3 of your 300,000. And then you multiply it by the amount of time it takes to triple in terms of days, because your answer is in days. So 4 hours over 24, 1/6 of a day multiplied by log base 3 of your new virus, number of virus cells. If you want to get more specific, you are dividing by 1 because you're starting with 1. And that 1 is continually tripling, but for visual sake, it's the exact same. 38, the Washington Monument is an obelisk composed of a tapered square cross-section, frustum of a period, surmounted by a square-based pyramid. The frustum bases are this and this, and the frustum height is that. Pyramid base is that, and it is that tall. Calculate the volume of the Washington Monument. The volume of a pyramidal frustum is this right here. Well, that makes things easy. You can solve for the frustum by plugging in all these values. 16.8, 10.5, 16.8 times 10.5 times your height of 152.4 and divided by 3. And you'll get a volume that's around like 28,000. And then you got to add in the height, or you got to add in the pyramid section. The volume of a pyramid is base squared times height over 3. And if you add those two together, you'll get 295,000. And that's important to note that this is not a frustum in the sense that we are used to with a cylindrical base and top. Otherwise, there would be pi in this equation. So don't use the frustum program for this. Or if you, well, okay, you can, but then just divide by pi. 39, equilateral triangle and circle. Figure out the length of this. Well, you can kind of map this out here. I'll just show you real quick. You need to figure out what this angle is. So you can use tangent on it. Well, these two are the same. And these two are the same. And since these two angles are 90 degrees, and this angle, because it's an equilateral triangle, is 60 degrees, this entire thing must be 120 degrees, because all the angles of a quadrilateral have to add up to 360. Then you divide by 2 to get an angle of 60 degrees here. Tangent of 60 times 20.6 gets you this side, and then multiply by 2 to get the entire thing of 71.4. Okay, 40, scaling triangle. In this case, you're just going to use the SAS program we have. Go to triangle, go to SAS, plug in the side, plug in this angle, plug in this side, and solve for this side over here, which is 0.175. Okay, assume lobster and crawfish are geometrically similar. A 1.5 pound, 17-inch long lobster yields that much tail meat. A crawfish averaged this length. If Ronnie wants to eat half a pound of crawfish tail meat, how much crawfish should he buy? Well, as it turns out, this 1.5 weight of the actual lobster is kind of irrelevant because you want to get a half pound of crawfish tail meat. You don't really care about the entire crawfish. Now you got to figure out how many crawfish it would take to fit. I guess a way to put it would be how many crawfish could fit inside a lobster, because for each lobster has a value, or has a side length of this much over times the length of the crawfish. That means that that many times more crawfish are needed to match a lobster in terms of length. Now now lobsters and crawfish are three-dimensional objects, so you have to cube that value to figure out how many more crawfish you need than lobster to create an equal amount of tail meat. And then you actually want half a pound or 8 ounces of tail meat, so you gotta do multiply it by 8 and divide by 6.5 your original to get 18 point something, which must round up to 19 because you can't have less. 47, oven's temperature set points at 50 degree increments. So 50 and 55, 100 and 112, 150, 175, etc. Plug all those values into linear regression. You'll want L1 to have 50, 100, 150, 200, etc. And Y will have the 55, 112, 175, 220. Then go to stat calculate, linear regression, store reg EQ into Y1, and you will go to EQ solver and figure out what value of Y1 will get you 350 degrees, which is what you want to bake at. And if you do that, you will get 314 degrees as your target, or as your measured oven, because your oven is broken. 48, plug it right into EQ solver, get your answer, done. 49, the volume of this object with a cavity. Well, that means that this part of the cylinder is actually non-existent. So there's a cone-shaped hole basically. So let's start with the area or volume of a cylinder, which would be radius squared, diameter over 2, squared, times pi, times your height of 4.24. And you must subtract the area of your cone, which is your radius squared times pi times your unknown height over 3. And that will get you 24.8. And if you do that, you'll get an x value of 1.98, which, as you can see, clearly makes sense with this problem. And the cool thing about calculator geometry problems is that they are almost always drawn at least very close to scale. So if something is off, you can tell it's off. Okay, 50. Sphere with cubic cavities whose corners contact the sphere. Well, let's figure out let's call this unknown side x. Let's figure out the radius. To get the radius is basically going from let's imagine this corner up here. It's going up, or to get there, it has to go up 0.5 times the length of the side. It has to go that way 0.5 of the side, and then finally go over here 0.5 of the way to get to the center. That means you can use three-dimensional Pythagorean theorem on them. So the radius is equal to the square root of your change in x squared plus your change in y squared plus your change in z squared. And that value will be that equation will be plugged in right here. And now that you have your radius, use the volume of a sphere. So cube your radius times 4 over 3 times pi. And then you subtract your side length cubed because it's a cavity, and set it equal to 5460. And if you do that, you get a side length of 14.7. 56, at what value of x does the slope of this function equal 4 pi? Well, d over dx of x squared minus 35x plus 231. Got to figure out what value of x that is equal to 4 pi. Go to EQ solver. And if you do that, you'll get a value of 23.8. 57, square stepping stones of side dimension A are butted next to each other in a line to create a path n times along, and being the number of stepping stones, a 12-inch stepping stone costs $1.58. A 16-inch stepping stone costs that much. The cost, you got to figure out what stone dimension minimizes cost, and the cost of a stepping stone is equal to some unknown m times the dimension squared plus c, where m and c are constant. So you got to figure out what these m and c variables are first. So you can imagine it as a related two-variable equation. When a is 12, as shown here, m is multiplied by 144, and c is added to 1 to get a cost of 1.58. So that's what's shown here. Then you do the same thing for your 16 squared. C is still the same, and it costs $2.5. Then you do RF. You go to Matrix, Math, scroll up until you get to RF. Put in the matrix, and then you'll figure out M and C. Then go put your new equation into Y1 with that M and C. Yeah. Yeah, you do kind of need this. You still do need this. Yeah. Okay, you kind of don't, but anyway, that's just the way I chose to do it. Now you have your equation. So now you need to figure out at what is the minimum cost per distance, because that will minimize the total cost of the path. So you plug in your equation, and you have to divide it by how long it is a to figure out its cost per distance. And if you do that and set the derivative equal to 0, which will show you where the minimum is, you can imagine the cost like this. The derivative is 0 right here. So at what point that derivative 0 represents the optimal length of the stepping stone. And if you do that, you will get 6.95. 58. What is F23? If F is equal to this plus that. Okay, F row 2, column 3. That would be equal to row 2, column 3 of matrix H if it was asking for H23. So F is equal to 13G plus 22H. So you have 3 times 13 plus 22 times negative 14, and you get negative 269. 59, this is going to be your Oxford problem. Go to y1, put in this equation. y2 should be y is equal to 0 because that's the lower bound. Then you use OXOR with, you do have bounds. You have bound at 0 and you have a bound at pi is equal to 2. And your line of revolution is irrelevant. And if you do that, you'll get a hatched area of 3.00. Okay, 60. The area of the circle is equal to the area of square. We can use that to figure out the length of this diagonal of a square. The area of a square is equal to the diagonal squared over 2. So set that equal to the area of the circle as shown here. Solve for x. And once you have that, you can figure out this y value by using Pythagorean theorem. So you do square root of x over 2 squared plus x over 2 plus 0.593 squared, because 0.593 is the radius. And then once you have that, AB is going to be equal to y squared minus 0.593 squared. If you do that, you will get the correct value of AB, which is 1.41. Okay, congruent isosceles triangles may be grouped to form a shape similar to a circle. More triangles make the assemblage look more like a circle. The sum of the triangle areas are given by this, where n is the number of triangles and r is the radius of the circle. What's the smallest n for when the sum of the triangle areas equals the circle area of just smaller than negative 0.11 error? Okay, so the sum of the area of the triangles is given to you right here. In this case, we can assume that the radius does not matter because it is based on percentage of the total area, which is all based on r squared times constants and stuff. So if you can assume the radius is 1. So the area of your circle, 1 squared times pi, and then the area we're looking for is 0.99 times that value. So then you do the equation for the sum of your triangles, set them equal to each other, and round up to get an x value of 26. 62, this is your overflow problem. Go to overfunction program. Your number is this 5, and it's being powered by 5 powered to 5, as shown here. So if you do that, you'll get a value of 1.91 times 10 powered to 2184. 63, A professional golfer consistently hit the ball that far with a 4-iron, and the angle is that. How far would the golf ball go if she used 5-iron with a 27-degree release angle? Okay, in this case, the velocity is going to be the same among both shots, so we need to figure out what that velocity is. So we can use your kinematics 2D program. Your change in x is 250 yards, so 250 times 3 to convert to feet. And then you have y. Your change in y is 0. It can be implied that the change is 0, and then your angle is 24 degrees. Use the xy theta program. That will get you the velocity in feet per second, means you can go back into kinematics 2D. Your change in y is still 0, your velocity is the same, and your theta is 27 degrees now. So put all those values in, and they will get you the change in x. In feet, then you divide by 3 to convert to yards, and put that, and you'll get 272. 64. The sector area, which is this entire thing, is equal to 5 times this triangle area. And what is the 5 times the triangle area or the sector area? So 4.75, basically you got to set these equal to each other. So 4.75 squared times sine of x over 2. That's the area of a triangle given two equal sides and an angle here. It's side squared times sine of angle over 2. And it's given that its sector area is equal to 5 times that value. So there's the times 5. And then that is equal to 360 minus x. The entire circle is 360 degrees. So you're figuring out what percentage of the circle is not included or is included in this giant sector. There's a divided by 360 over there to turn it into a percentage of the circle. Then you multiply it by your circle area if it was a full circle, so 4.75 squared times pi. And if you do that, you'll get an x value of around 78.9, I believe. And then you simply plug that back into the triangle area and multiply it by 5 and get 55.3. 65. Good to end on a problem that's not too bad. This is another basically area of the triangle, but there are 4 triangles. This side is equal to CD over 2. This side is equal to 6.4 over 2. And this angle, sine of this angle is going to be the same as the sine of this angle, because this angle is just 180 degrees minus 59.2, which is given to be the same thing by sine. So what all this simplifies out to is you're basically multiplying the two diagonals together and multiplying by your sine value. And if you do that, you do have to, no, you do not have to, hold on 1 second. Yes, you do have to, my bad, I messed up on my writing. You do have to divide by 2 at the end, like I figured, because because you have your two triangles, which each divide them by these by 2, and then you're dividing the triangle by 2. There are 4 of them, so that counteracts the divide by 2 on these two. Keep the sign and divide by 2 at the end. If you do that, your parallelogram area you get will be 30.1. Okay, that was the entire test. Hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions or need any clarifications, leave a comment and I'll try to answer them. Have a good day, I guess.